Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Electrified Reviews. Today we're looking at the YUME HAWK, and this is actually my second video for this electric scooter. If you want to see the first video, which was unboxing, setup, my first impressions, you can click on that right here. Today's video is my in-depth review. I've ridden a lot of miles on this scooter already, almost 80 miles, and so I want to share with you an in-depth review, give you my professional opinion on just, you know, what I think of it. And overall, it's really positive. I mean, I love this scooter. I've had such a fun time on it. Part of that, of course, is that it's big enough for me. If you look at me next to it here, I actually feel comfortable on it, whereas for a lot of electric scooters, they're just, a little bit too small for me. I'm taller than average though at 6'3", so take that with a grain of salt. With that said though, this scooter is just, it's fantastic. The components are excellent. It's got a ton of power. It's very comfortable. It can go anywhere and do just about anything, which I've done. I mean, if you look at it here, it is very dirty from some of my off-road mud riding adventures. And I was going to clean it up for the review today, but I don't know, I wanted to show you guys that I've really taken this thing all over the place to see what it could do. Now it looks like an off-road scooter at first glance. My favorite comment I got on this when I was out riding it, someone was like, hey, is that a SWAT scooter? I mean, it's heavy duty. Big old tank, you've got dual suspension, dual motor, big fenders, like it's fully loaded, and even though you can take it anywhere, it's really more designed for kind of like city commuting, urban streets kind of stuff. The suspension is very high quality. It's both coil and oil suspension. You can adjust the preload on it as well, but it doesn't have a ton of travel. So if you're looking for, some heavy duty off-road riding for your main use for the scooter, then you'd probably want something a little more heavy duty. And actually this is YUME's smallest scooter, I'm pretty sure. They've got a lot of other models that are just massive, even bigger suspension, really designed purely for off-road riding. So the Hawk, I think, is kind of more of an all-purpose city riding, commuting type of a scooter. And when it comes to using this as a commuter, it is fully loaded with high quality accessories. They're all included at no extra charge, which is awesome. You've got the adjustable mirrors, you've got the full lighting. I mean, there's the headlight up there on the front, tail light is right back here. Now it has turn signals, it's got brake light activation, all of that can be controlled from this motorcycle-esque control pad over here on the left. It's got a horn, crazy loud. There's the cell phone holder included, there's fenders, there's even a steering damper. That's this thing mounted right down here on the center. Now, if you don't know what a steering damper is, it's something you can add on as an accessory to pretty much any scooter, but not that many actually come with one standard, which is a bummer because it really increases the ride safety, especially when you're riding at high speed. Really what the steering damper does is it adds resistance to the steering column so that you don't feel bumps and vibrations from the road nearly as much. Now, a downside of any scooter, this is just due to the the small wheels, having the long stem for steering, they magnify bumps and vibrations from the road. So once you get going fast, they can get really unstable. You can get something called speed wobble, death wobble, which is not a good time. And so that is where the steering damper kicks in. You can adjust the resistance of it to suit your liking. Now, some people commented on the first video of this saying, like, what's up with the steering damper? It looks so weird. It is mounted asymmetrically, which I'll admit is not maybe as aesthetically pleasing as if it's perfectly lined up, but that doesn't affect the performance of it all. It still gets the job done. And when you look at the frame and everything here, I can see why they mounted it that way. So don't worry, it still works just as well. Speaking of the frame, it's incredibly rigid, sturdy. I mean, this thing feels great even going 43 miles an hour, which, honestly seems a little crazy on a scooter until you actually try it. It's a single piece molded frame instead of you having welds, so that helps to make it a lot more sturdy. You've got these big old fenders on here, and these tires are kind of hybrid tread, I guess you would call it. Like they're not slicks, but they're not quite off-road either. So they still have good efficiency on city streets, but you can take them on the trail. You can do some off-road adventuring like I've done. These are tubeless tires, which helps them be like a little bit more lightweight and more puncture resistant, which is awesome to see. And the last bit for commuting accessories is this nice little hard shell stem case that just fastens on the top of the stem right here. It's not huge, you can't carry a ton of stuff in it, but it's very well designed. I love how seamless the zippers look. Yeah, you can, you know, dump some extra cargo in here. I've got some extra GoPro batteries, and I just left this in there. This is the alternate trigger throttle if you don't want to use the thumb throttle, which brings me to talking just about the rest of the accessories for the Hawk. I mean, they really loaded this thing out. There's a pump for inflating your tires. You get 2 chargers. The assembly toolkit is one of the best that I've seen. It had all of the tools that you need to assemble it, and the manual too. I mean, it's color pictures. It actually is written in good English. It makes sense. It's specifically for this scooter instead of being generic. Now, I said this in my last video, but like YUME really did an excellent job just as far as the packaging and the assembly presentation and all of that. Like, it is very well done. Okay, so let's talk about the fun to ride factor, the power, the performance. Here, the Hawk is it's ludicrously powerful. It's got a 1350 watt-hour battery, and it's a 60 volt battery too. Like, it pushes some serious power. Now, the battery's not removable, at least not with tools. You know, you can, you know, pop the top of the deck up here and get it out. You know, take you 5 or 10 minutes, but it's stored in the bottom under the running board here. Then you've got dual motors, 1200 watt hub motors, you know, one in the front and one in the rear. And the torque on these things is just ridiculous. If you have it in full power mode, which is power mode 3, and then you have both motors activated, you hit the throttle when you're stopped and your tires will skid out. You've got more than enough power. The acceleration is just ridiculous. You feel like you're about to fall off the back of it. And that's even true for like the mid-range acceleration, which is really impressive. So if you're traveling at like, you know, 30, 35 miles per hour already and you hit the throttle, then you can still just take off and accelerate all the way up to that max speed of 43 miles per hour. There are 3 different power modes that you can control with the display controls that really just limit your top speed. They don't limit the power output, so you can still get that nice fast acceleration and just limit yourself to a lower top speed, maybe for safety or just to, you know, save your battery. Power mode 1 will just cap you at about 20 or so miles per hour. When you shift up to power mode 2, that'll lift you up to about 30. And then power mode 3 is when you can get all the way up to the top speed of 43 miles per hour. But no, that's only if you have both motors engaged. With just a single motor, you can still only get to like 30, maybe 32 miles per hour when you're riding in single motor mode. But that's, you know, where you're gonna get the most efficiency and range out of it. I'm gonna take advantage of the shade here real quick just to show you guys the display. And I really do like their display. It's awesome. It's bright enough to like easily see even in bright daylight. The colors look nice. It's got all the information you need. And it's very simple control mechanism too. Like, I was able to just figure it out without even having to, you know, look at the manual. It just makes sense. So you fire up the display by holding down the power button here on the left grip. Now, when it starts up, it's going to be locked. You can key in an unlock code, which is nice to have in a pinch, but kind of annoying. The cool way to unlock it is using one of the NFC tags. You get 2 of them that are included with the scooter. You just put that on the display and boom, you are unlocked. Let me try to position the camera so that you guys can pick up some of this. I know the camera doesn't do a great job here, but you've got your speed in the center, your trip counter on the left side over here, and then your total miles on the right. You can see I've ridden 74 miles, battery down on the bottom. And then if you want to, you know, change your power mode from 1 through 3, you just press the M button right here. 1, 2, 3, and then it'll loop around back to 1. And if you want to switch it to dual motor mode, you just hit F, and then you'll see a little D right there that indicates that you're in dual drive mode. You can hit it again to switch it back. And there you have it. It's simple, it's elegant. I think this is how displays and controls should be set up. And if you want a little bit more detail and just, you know, another way to interact with the scooter, you can actually use the smartphone app, which also is surprisingly well done. And when you're using the app, you can see the same stuff that's on the display. So you can see your, you know, your speed. You can change your power mode settings, or, you know, go from single to dual motor mode. And then you can also change your scooter settings. You can change it from imperial to metric. You can pair a new NFC tag with it. There's a bunch more stuff in there. You can talk to YUME support. There's a little like GPS mapping, like trip tracker kind of thing that I haven't used, but looks to work well. Like, it's a really well done app. And the nicest thing for me is that you can unlock the scooter from the app. So if you maybe don't have your keys, you know, your NFC tags aren't with you, you can just use your phone to quickly unlock it instead of having to key in the code. So yeah, really, I think it's awesome. Like, it's actually worth having, whereas a lot of scooter apps are just like extra fluff that doesn't actually contribute something useful. So now the Hawk is one of the safest scooters that I have personally ridden. Like, I'm really impressed, and it kind of comes down into really three sections. One is just the visibility factor, being able to, you know, see the road in front of you. Some of that's nighttime riding. The headlight's very bright. I would like it to be positioned higher up, like I mentioned, but it's still incredibly bright. You can see a lot. And then also it's a very tall scooter. When I'm standing on the deck, I can see over traffic in all directions. And so it feels very easy to, you know, to navigate in traffic when I could just have such good visibility. You know, the other part of visibility is, of course, being seen by other drivers. And here again, it does great. It kind of helps to make up for the headlight being down so low that we have these LED lighting integrated into the stem and the running board. And I mean, even in daylight here, they stand out. They're very bright. When you're looking at these at night, it's just blazingly bright. You can actually turn these up even brighter. I think I have them on the medium setting, but this gives you really good side visibility, and even, you know, decent from kind of a front angle, because it wraps around a little bit. You can actually even see it just a little bit directly from the front. So that makes it very easy for other riders to see you. You've got turn signals, so you can signal when you're turning. There's extra bright brake light activation. When you just, you know, squeeze on the brake levers here, that kicks in. So yeah, it's very easy for people to see you, and if they don't see you, you've got the horn or buzzer on here, which is obnoxiously loud. Like, people are going to hear that for sure. So yeah, like from just like the visibility aspects of safety, it does a great job. The other two safety components we're talking about are braking and power. So for braking, again, excellent. You've got hydraulic disc brakes in the front and in the rear, 140 millimeter rotors. These are Zoom brakes. They're excellent quality. They've got motor inhibitors, which means as soon as you start to squeeze the levers, it cuts power to the motor. Really important on scooters, especially because if you have to stop suddenly, you might forget that you have your thumb throttle depressed when you start braking. You don't want to be fighting these motors. They're incredibly powerful. So it cuts the power. You can stop easily, but that's not it. You actually have electronic brakes built in as well, and you'll feel the electronic braking if you squeeze just a little bit on the levers, not enough to fully activate the hydraulic brakes. This will kick in the electronic braking, which just provides some extra stopping power and also actually regenerates a little bit of your power back into the battery, so you can get even more range out of it. So I'm really impressed with the stopping power. You get going 43 miles per hour, you can still slam on the brakes and stop on a dime. The last bit, safety-wise, to discuss is power, actually. Power and acceleration. When you are riding on any kind of a vehicle, one of your escape vectors is forward. Sometimes if somebody's maybe coming in from the side and you can't stop because there's something behind you, or for whatever reason, you might need to accelerate forward out of the way of danger. And you can actually do that on this scooter. I mean, even if you're going 35 miles per hour already, you can still hit the throttle and get a lot of acceleration to get out of the way of danger. It makes it feel a lot more safe if you are riding with traffic. Now, ideally on a scooter, you have bike lanes, you have paths that you can use, so you don't have to ride with vehicles in regular automobile lanes. But sometimes you have to do that, especially depending on where you live, and you actually can easily on the Hawk. So if you've got city streets that are 35 to 40 miles per hour speed limit, you can easily ride on those streets with traffic. You can see over them, you can keep pace. I've been beating cars off the line when I'm taking off from a stoplight on this thing. So yeah, it feels great riding with cars. Now, I know it sounds like I'm really excited and just have only good things to say about the Hawk, so let me just run you through a few of the downsides that it does have. No scooter's perfect. A lot of the downsides for the Hawk, honestly, though, they do come down to kind of just personal preference and what you want to be using it for. The biggest, most obvious one for the Hawk is that it is not portable. It's huge. It weighs 82 pounds. It does fold, but the folding mechanism leaves a little bit to be desired. So if you're looking for a highly portable scooter that you can, take on the subway or, carry up 3 flights of stairs to your apartment, this is not the scooter for you. I actually live on the 3rd floor of an apartment and have to carry this thing up and down, and while it is a great workout, I would go for something lighter weight, just kind of keeping that in mind. So having, ground floor storage where you can keep it hopefully indoors is definitely going to help a lot. Let me show you the folding mechanism so that I can demonstrate what I was talking about. It's very well designed. It's very sturdy. You just loosen this thing up right here, lift this up, and then the stem can fold down. A little bit tricky to do with one hand, but there we go. So when it's folded, it does still take up quite a bit of space, but not as much now. If you needed to transport it in a vehicle or just have it be a little more out of the way when you're storing it inside. This will help, but the downside of it is that there's no like latch or lock when it's folded. So this can just swing around. So, you know, like usually when you just leave it setting, it'll end up swinging down like this with gravity since it leans over a little bit on the kickstand. So if you're carrying it, it's gonna swing around and be obnoxious. And you know, if you're storing it also, it just like, it's like I think if you were transporting it as a vehicle is where that would be really frustrating. It's just, you know, it's gonna be swinging all over the place back there. So I would like to see some kind of a like latching or locking mechanism. And the other thing when it's folded is that the cabling as it exits the stem down here is just kind of like right on top of the steering damper. You know, they kind of rub against each other down here. And so I would worry just about like, you know, long term, is this gonna like damage the cabling or anything? It's really kind of compacting it tight in here. It is very rugged cabling, very well shielded, and so it should hold up okay, but that's another area. It's just kind of like a room for improvement. I'd be careful about this when you have it folded. Now, really the only other major downside for the Hawk, in my opinion, is that the battery is not easily removable. Now, you can remove it, but you know, it needs some tools, 5 or 10 minutes of your time. What I mean is that you can't just pop the battery off and bring the battery inside for charging, or if you're out, you know, running errands or maybe commuting to work, you can't pop the battery out to bring it inside with you, which reduces the theft risk for the scooter. You just have to leave the battery in the scooter, which means when you want to charge it, you got to bring the whole scooter inside. That kind of, you know, when you consider just the weight of it and how it's not very portable, that can really be a hassle depending on where you live. And I mentioned I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor, have to lug this thing up and down a spiral staircase. So that's, you know, really annoying. But if I, you know, lived on the 1st floor, that wouldn't be as big of a problem. If I, you know, had a garage, then it'd be no problem at all. So you could store it inside, away from the, you know, just weather and extreme temperatures. That's really, I think, where the downside of having the battery non-removable is that if you have to leave the scooter outside for long periods of time, then it's exposed to heat or cold, which is just not good for lithium-ion batteries. That'll hurt your capacity over time. Hawk looks pretty awesome on paper, but now it's time to take it out and see what it can do in the wild. You know, we're gonna go for a nice ride test. It's not great weather, so we'll probably be testing out the fenders among other things. But on this test, I'm gonna, you know, do a little bit of testing out the different modes, you know, show you what the acceleration and speed are like, and, you know, single motor versus dual motor. And I'm gonna do some trail riding and some just top speed test riding, you know, ride with traffic, see how the acceleration is, and really put it through its paces. So let's get to it. Okay, let's get it fired up here. And you can actually just unlock it from the app. So boom, there we go. Hopefully my phone will be at a good angle. I'm actually gonna crank the brightness up. Hopefully you guys can see the speed on here, or maybe on here. It's kind of hard on the camera, but you know, we'll see what we can do. Let's see, I'm going to make sure my trip is reset, and it is. We're starting at 46 miles. I'm gonna keep the lights on, because part of this test is just sort of like an unofficial range test, so I want to see how far we can get. One thing I noticed every time that I've ridden it, I'd fully charged this right before leaving, and the battery says 95% for the peak. I don't know if, you know, maybe the gauge is a little bit off or something. I did notice the battery will dip under acceleration, which is pretty common. So when you're, especially if you have it in dual motor mode, when you hit full throttle, you'll see the battery sag quite a bit while you're accelerating, and you know, then it'll go back up. All right, we're going to take off here in speed mode 1 and just single motor mode. So when you've got it in speed mode 1, your top speed is about 20 miles per hour, 22. And going full throttle, it gets up to that top speed pretty quick. This is the lowest power mode, so if you're really trying to conserve power, maximize your range, then just leave it in this mode. You know, you can go 20 miles an hour, which is pretty decent, especially for, you know, commuting around in the city. If you don't have to ride with traffic, or if there's not a lot of traffic like on these neighborhood streets, then that's a good amount of power. And if you kick it up into speed mode 2, you get the same acceleration, the same power from the motor, but now you just have a higher top speed. You can get up to about 30 miles per hour in speed mode 2. So you'd probably use speed mode 2 if you're still trying to, you know, be conservative on your power, but you need to go a little bit faster. Maybe you need to ride with traffic that's moving at around 30 or so miles an hour. Traction feels great. This is a very well balanced, very nimble feeling scooter. You know, despite its size and weight, it feels very agile. All right. Now I think this is really designed to be more of like a city streets, you know, maybe some light trails scooter, but we're gonna do some trail ride just for the fun of it. Did the wheel skid out a little bit there? We are definitely putting the fenders to the test today. Traction still feels awesome. Very good grip, even on the kind of dirt gravel mix we got here. That's maybe a little bit more mud than I would normally ride through, but hey, you know, why not? For science, I am going to put on dual motor mode, you know, all-wheel drive, because that might get a little bit hairy. All right. A little bit slippery. But we have emerged none the worse for wear. Turn off the dual motor just for a little bit. But yeah, as you can hear, I'm sure on the off-road here, I'm getting a lot of handlebar just vibration come through the bumps in the road. It still feels decent on my feet, but like I said, I think this isn't meant for extreme off-roading. The suspension just doesn't have quite enough travel to compensate for that. I mean, it still feels fine, but a lot of vibration. Now, having the mirrors on here is really an awesome feature. Love having them. Unfortunately, they're not very useful once you get above about 20 miles per hour because they vibrate quite a lot. Like if you just, you know, tapping on it like this, you can see when they start to vibrate, it's hard to make anything out in them. And this is something that, you know, almost all scooters have quite a bit of handlebar vibration. You have these small wheels. Even if you have huge suspension on here, there's just quite a lot of vibration that gets up to the handlebars. You'd need some kind of a damper, vibration damping stem up here to really combat that. So 20 miles per hour and below, they work great. But once you get going, you know, 30, 35, 40 miles per hour, there's just, they vibrate so much, you can't really see anything. So when I do this speed test here, look at the mirrors, you'll see what I mean. So let's do some speed tests. I've got it up in level 3, but I'm gonna leave it still on just single motor mode, just the rear motor. And I wanna just demo the top speed difference here. You can get up to 30 to 35 miles per hour using just the rear motor, but you can't hit that top speed of 43 miles per hour with just one motor, not even when the battery's full. All right, so we'll start off from a dead stop. Pretty decent acceleration. There's 27, 28. We hit 30. And that's, you know, we're really kind of topping out right about there. 30, 31. I've still got it full throttle. There's 32 briefly. So realistically, your top speed with one motor is right about 30 miles per hour. You know, going on flat terrain, obviously if you're on hills, then it's gonna be even lower than that. But if you're going downhill, you'd squeeze some more out of it. Now we're going to kick it into fun mode. You hit the F on here, and that's gonna bump it into dual motor mode. And we're going to do the same test again. We're just gonna take off full throttle and see what kind of speed we can get out of it on our little straightaway here. Acceleration is crazy. Look at that, we're already at 25. There is 35, 40. I don't want to go over these railroad tracks going quite that fast. But yeah, you can see the acceleration is just absolutely monstrous when you've got both motors kicked on. And now you will see the battery sag quite a bit when you really juice it and take off. You know, now it says 52% for the battery, but then as soon as I start to slow down, then that is going to climb back up. Now it's at 76%. And as I mentioned, that's fairly normal for a lot of electric vehicle batteries. It is possible for them to change how they are measuring and reporting that voltage to show the actual remaining capacity instead of just the the current voltage when it has such a big draw. But it's going to fluctuate a lot if you're riding in full throttle mode. You know, now we're back up to 78%. And it actually is possible to regenerate a little bit of power since these direct drive motors have electronic braking, and they can actually regenerate some power when you're stopping, which is a nice feature. You don't get a ton of extra range, but you know, every little bit helps. All right, we're gonna do some brake test action now. I'm gonna get it cranked up to about top speed and then just slam on the brakes. There's 38. Pretty solid stopping distance. Like, honestly could have hit the brakes a bit more, but I don't know, I didn't want to go too crazy. Yeah, the brakes feel amazing, honestly. Like they're very responsive, very smooth. Hydraulic brakes, so they're very easy to actuate the levers. You don't need a lot of grip strength. And in addition to having the dual hydraulic brakes, they're electronic brakes too, so you get extra stopping power there. It's fantastic. All right, we are going to cruise down College Avenue and ride with traffic. See if anybody wants to race, you know? It's wild being able to accelerate fast enough to beat cars off the line. Now the Hawk is a fairly tall scooter. It's got a high deck, and that's a big advantage in my opinion because you can see over traffic. You know, I can see over all the traffic in front of me down the next few stoplights. You know, keep in mind my head is about a foot higher than the camera height. So you can see over cars in front of you, to the side. It gives you great visibility. It helps it to feel a bit more safe when you're riding in traffic. And as far as riding in traffic goes, I feel very safe on the Hawk. The acceleration means that you can accelerate out of the way of danger, keep pace with traffic. It's got excellent visibility thanks to the lights. Like the running lights on the side are very bright. You've got turn signals, you've got brake light activation, you've got mirrors, you've got a horn. Like, it's fully equipped. And so if, speed limit 40 or less streets, it feels great. The mid-range acceleration on the Hawk it's really impressive. If I'm gonna slow down to 30 miles per hour or so, and then just hit the throttle, and we just take off. There's 35 and up to 40. So even when you're going on these higher speed limit streets, you still have a good capacity for acceleration to get out of the way of danger if you need to. .6 miles in, we are at 70% battery capacity. So not too bad, considering we're riding at full power and full speed for a lot of it. We are at 12 miles even, and battery's down to 55%. So honestly, considering how much we're pushing, really not bad at all. And what's crazy is that it still feels amazingly peppy. I mean, the acceleration doesn't seem to have really gone down at all. Still able to take off and get up to maximum speed pretty quickly. The electronic brakes are pretty strong by themselves, so I'm impressed. If you just lightly squeeze on the brake levers, not strong enough to engage the hydraulic brakes, you'll still activate the electronic brakes, and that'll slow the scooter down pretty effectively. I've actually, you know, if I don't have to stop suddenly, I'll just use just that to come to a stop. So that saves your hydraulic brakes and you know, regenerates a little bit of battery as well. So that's pretty awesome, I think. We're at 44% battery, 15.6 miles in. Look at that, acceleration is still strong. 17.6 miles in, and we're finally starting to lose power noticeably. Let's see what we got. 37% on the battery. And so the acceleration's still pretty brisk, but the top speed is starting to drop a bit. And it's, even though it's still pretty brisk, the acceleration has dropped some as well. I'm not hearing the wheels slip out when I take off. Of course, one of the perks of riding a scooter is that you know, you can go places that cars can't go. The road up here is closed, so we're just going to take the bike path trail underneath. On your left. Now, if you do plan to ride this scooter on bike paths, just make sure you're aware of the regulations where you live. Most cities will have some kind of a speed limit for bike paths, and for some of them it might actually be illegal to ride any kind of a motor vehicle on the bike path. This road is pretty rough, you know, gravel, dirt kind of a mixture. And I just wanted to do a little bit more kind of off-road-ish riding. This, you know, you can totally off-road on this. I mean, it's got good traction from the tires, are kind of a good hybrid tread. You've got full suspension, not a ton of travel, so it's not very comfortable, you know, riding off-road like this, especially with all these rough rocks in here. It's a very uneven surface. So I don't think that the Hawk is really designed for off-road riding. You know, you'd want something with a suspension fork, more travel in the suspension. And honestly, probably bigger tires too if you're going to do any serious off-roading. But you know, you can still do it. Traction's good. There's quite a bit of vibration on roads like this, so you wouldn't want to do it for a long distance. You know, even not even just handlebar vibration, but you can, when it's this rough, you can feel the vibration in the deck as well. Traction feels great though. Woo. Messed up my mirror there. There we go. But with all of that said, honestly, for a scooter, the Hawk feels awesome on this, you know, doing this kind of off-roading. Most scooters feel very rough off-road just because you have when you have really small wheels, it's a poor attack angle against bumps, and so there's only so much you can do even with good suspension. You know, for them to feel good off-road, you would need much larger diameter wheels, and you know, big suspension forks. So compared to you know, most city scooters, this is much better at off-roading, feels much more comfortable. It's really a scooter that you could kind of take anywhere. So now when I'm full throttle, top speed, batteries drop down to 16%. And we can only hit about 33, 34 miles per hour. We're at 19.4 miles on the odometer. Ooh, see if we can climb up here. Even on low battery, can we do it? Oh, yeah. No problem. Another nice thing about the height of the deck on here is you can jump off curbs. I'm just gonna, you know, walk it off the edge here so you can see it's got enough clear deck to just go right off, no problem. Don't have to worry about scraping up the underside. All right, guys, that's the end of the ride test. And now that I've really put the Hawk through the paces, well, let's talk about range for one thing. I've got 23.9 miles on the trip odometer, so I did 23.9 miles today, and we're at 28% battery power left. And for almost all of this, I was riding at level 3, dual motor mode, riding at or near the top speed, you know, riding with traffic, did a little bit of trail riding, did a little bit of hills, but not a ton. There's not a lot of those in Fort Collins, but I was pushing this really hard. Max, I think you could really count on 25 miles or so for kind of a minimum range. So it's, you know, like your worst case scenario, you're pushing it hard, you've got it in maximum power mode. If you drop that down into single motor mode, and better yet, even drop it down to, you know, power level 1, so it reduces the max speed to 20 miles per hour, I think you could very easily get 40, 50 miles out of it, maybe even more. So it's really got some impressive range. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind for your normal use. Now, it's a lot more fun to ride in dual motor mode. The acceleration is amazing, the top speed is higher. Like, that's the fun way to ride it. But if you're using it for, you know, more of a commuter, you don't have to go that fast, then you can drop the power level down and get some serious range out of it, maybe even go a few days of commuting without having to plug it in, which is pretty awesome. Fenders did a pretty good job, but still got, you know, mud all over in there. I mean, I don't think this is designed to be riding through lakes of mud like I was doing today, but did pretty good overall. I mean, I got a little bit of mud splatters on my pants, but hardly any, so really not bad. Okay, my friends, that is it for the YUME Hawk. If you watched this whole video, then you know I love this scooter. If you jumped all the way to the end, then, well, you know that now too. Overall, I think it's excellent value for money. It's kind of a go anywhere, do anything, rugged, super powerful. It's a beast. You know, they're really the only things to you know, consider for this scooter if you're thinking about, like, hey, is this the right scooter for me? Like, really the only thing I think is just kind of the portability. You know, be aware of the size. It weighs 82 pounds and it doesn't lock down when it's folding, so it can be a little unwieldy to, like, carry or store. That's really the only consideration that I would leave for you. You know, other than that, it's really it's awesome, good stuff. All right, guys, if you you know, if maybe you own one of these scooters or another one from YUME, maybe you got questions about this review, chime in down in the comments section. I want to hear what you guys have to say. You can head over to our website. There's a link in the description for the full written review for this scooter. Has all the specs, goes into way more detail even than I went into in the video today. So be sure and head on over and check that out. Yeah, that's about it. So take care out there, ride safe. I'll catch you in the next video.